Welcome back to Full Court Femmes Red Storm Report, where we don't just talk about tomorrow's game, we break down why it matters and what it really takes to win.
The Red Storm traveled to the Fin on Saturday to face a Villanova squad that's not just competitive, it's dangerous. And we're cutting past the narrative to the data and decision-making that will determine this game.
But before we talk about patience at the Fin, we got to talk about what happened at the Garden on Tuesday night.
Because how St. John's handled pressure on Tuesday tells you everything about whether this next test is even on the table.
So let's be clear about this one. This wasn't St. John's surviving Marquette's pressure. This was St. John's absorbing it, answering it, and then breaking it.
Final at the Garden, 92-68. And the margin didn't come from a fluke stretch. It came from control.
Now, as you know, Caroline, Penny called the score for the game at St. John's.
So that was a miss. But here's the important part.
The read was right. It was a pressure game. It was tight early in the game, and St. John's took a little bit of time to find some answers.
What Annie didn't account for was just how decisively St. John's would take control once they did.
So I don't think that's a bad miss.
That's St. John's outperforming the moment.
And you know, Marquette did exactly what they came to the Garden to do. They crowded the ball, they jumped lanes, they sped the game up, and turned possessions into chaos.
And early, you could feel the test. A couple rush decisions, some noise. That's the trap.
And then St. John's slowed its mind.
The numbers back it up. 50.8% shooting. Paint touches first. 3 second. No panic when the first look wasn't there.
And Uzziah Sellers, man, that man showed up for the night. He exploded for a season-high 24 points, going 9 for 16 from the floor and hitting 4 threes. He dropped 15 of those in the first half, which set the tone early for the Johnnies.
And those 15 first half points were important because we had Hopkins on the bench after 2 minutes, and Zuby sat out the last 12 minutes of the first half, both with foul trouble. But inside, Zuby, when he was on the floor, was relentless. 22 points, second chances, and physical finishes that took Marquette out of a scramble mode. And Bryce Hopkins chipped in double digits as well.
And here's the thing that actually broke them. Runs never breathed.
Every time Marquette tried to string together momentum, St. John's answered immediately, forcing 19 Marquette turnovers. No stretch longer than a few possessions.
That was incredible. And it also showed up on the glass too, Caroline. St. John's out-rebounded Marquette 39-26. Interestingly, Marquette forward Ben Gold sat this one out due to an ankle injury. But that was announced just 3 hours before the game. You know, we won't know if that would have changed anything on Tuesday, but my bet is it still would have been the same outcome.
What we do know, Erin, is that the Garden didn't speed the game up, and that matters.
Because pressure plus crowd usually equals mistakes in the Garden, and instead, St. John's played with clarity.
Not perfect, and a little sloppy at times.
Yeah, but it was controlled. It was intentional, Caroline. It was a grown-up game. Importantly, this was the Red Storm's third consecutive double-digit Big East win.
When you stack that all together, this stops looking like a hot stretch and starts looking like a team understanding who it is.
All right, so we've talked about how it looked on the floor.
Now let's see how that lines up with what we actually put on the record.
Because the reads were right and the numbers back them up.
Turnovers stayed controlled, chaos didn't convert, shot quality held, runs got cut off.
Well, it is bold and busted, Caroline, and I am so excited to go through this with you today because there's a lot of things we got right. Let's start with bold prediction number 1. St. John's commits 12 or few turnovers.
We hit this one, Erin. They finished with exactly 12. Early pressure forced a couple of shaky moments, but here's the difference. St. John's didn't spiral. They settled, shortened possessions, and stopped feeding Marquette's hands.
That's composure. Not perfection, but definitely composure.
Bold prediction number 2. Marquette scores fewer than 14 points off turnovers.
That's a hit. And this one matters. Marquette created chaos, but it didn't turn into points. No runouts and no avalanche.
Pressure without payoff is just noise, and St. John's made it noisy.
Yes, they did. Bold prediction number 3, St. John's shoots 48% or better from the field.
We hit this one too, Erin. 50.8%, and it wasn't luck. Paint touches first, kick out second, and zero panic when the first option wasn't there.
That's shot discipline beating pressure.
Bold prediction number 4. Nigel James held to under 20 points.
Hit. Woohoo! No heat check stretch, no takeover run. He gave 17 points and 4 assists to the board, but never momentum. And against Marquette, we'll take that as a win any day.
You can't let a score like that flip the math, and St. John's didn't.
All right, so we are 4 for 4 right now. Let's see if we hit this last one. Bold prediction number 5. St. John's wins the run game. No Marquette run longer than 8-0.
And we hit this one, Erin. We're 5 for 5. This was the separator. Every Marquette push got answered immediately. Post touch, free throws, a clean look.
That's 5 bold predictions and 5 that held up when the pressure actually showed up.
That's not luck.
No, that's understanding how this game was going to be played and what it would take to win it.
Now, here's where it gets interesting.
Yep, because it's time to talk about what awaits the Johnnies at the Finn. This Villanova game is a completely different problem than they just faced with Marquette.
They don't come at you with chaos. They come at you with control. And they're very comfortable making you sit in it.
Yes, they are. Villanova enters this one 14-3 overall and 5-1 in Big East play, firmly in the top tier of the league right alongside St. John's. And they're not flashy, they're not streaky, they're just consistently hard to move out of that position.
They're averaging about 78.6 points per game, shooting around 47% from the floor, and that efficiency isn't accidental. Their offense is built on spacing, timing, and making the defense choose, not react.
And unlike Marquette, Villanova doesn't try to speed you up. They slow the game down, flatten possessions, and force you to guard for 25 seconds, not 10.
The Providence game on January 13th told you exactly who they are. Villanova won 88-82 on the road. And it wasn't about a hot stretch. It was about answers.
Every time Providence made a push, Villanova responded with execution. A set that got them into the paint, a kick-out three, a late clock read that didn't panic.
And that balance matters. They didn't lean on one guy. They spread the responsibility, including 20 points and 7 assists from Devin Askew off the bench, who controlled tempo and made sure possessions didn't die.
And Villanova's guards don't hunt chaos. They hunt advantages. One defender a step late, one help decision shaded wrong, one possession where you relax.
That's how they win, not with runs, but with a 4-out, 1-in motion that allows for dribble penetration and kickouts.
Defensively, they're just as disciplined. They don't gamble, they don't overhelp. They sit in gaps, close out under control, and trust the next rotation with suffocating intensity.
Villanova is about to ask if the Johnnies can handle patience.
They want to know, can the Johnnies stay sharp when the game doesn't give them adrenaline?
Can you keep cutting, keep screening, keep making the right read when nothing looks urgent?
And when you talk about Villanova's patience, it always comes back to the same question.
Who do you trust to make the right decision when the possession stretches?
For Villanova, there are 2 names that answer that immediately.
Let's start with Bryce Lindsey, known as the scorer who waits, because he embodies how Villanova scores without rushing.
Lindsey is averaging 15.2 points per game this season, shooting efficiently and doing his damage inside the flow. He's not hunting early shots, but he is punishing late ones.
Against Providence on January 13th, you saw it clearly. Providence made runs, changed coverages, tried to speed things up, and Lindsey just kept finding space. Catch, read, finish. No wasted movement.
And he doesn't need volume to hurt you. He needs one lapse, a late closeout, a defender leaning the wrong way, and suddenly it's 2 points or a kick-out three that resets Villanova's control.
And that's the danger. If you fall asleep because the game feels slow, Lindsey is the one who reminds you it isn't.
And then there's the stabilizer inside, Duke Brennan. His impact doesn't always jump off the screen, but it shows up on the scoreboard.
Brennan gives Villanova physicality and patience in the front court at 6'10". He's a steady rebounder, a reliable finisher, and a safety valve when possessions stall, averaging 12.4 points and 10.7 rebounds per game.
In the Providence game, Brennan delivered 14 points and 5 offensive rebounds. He didn't need to dominate touches. He controlled the space. Offensive rebounds, second chance points that stop momentum before it could swing.
That matters against a team like St. John's because Brennan forces you to finish possessions. You can't just defend the first action. You have to rebound too.
And when Villanova plays through him, it slows the game even further. You're not running, you're guarding strength. You're boxing out, and you're thinking.
Lindsey stresses you on the perimeter with timing.
And Brennan stresses you inside with presence.
One punishes mistakes.
And the other punishes impatience.
That's Villanova basketball.
And when you understand what Bryce Lindsey and Duke Brennan bring to the floor, then it sets up the keys for what St. John's needs to do to win this game.
Because it isn't about surviving Villanova's style. It's about playing through it without blinking.
So, Caroline, how do you do that? What is required of the Johnnies to win this game?
All right, Erin, let's lay out the keys to the game. Key number 1, stay engaged for the full possession.
Villanova doesn't beat you with the first action.
They beat you with the third, the relocation, the extra pass. St. John's has to guard for the entire clock, not 20 seconds, not good enough defense. Finish every possession.
And key number 2 is don't let Bryce Lindsey score the quiet 8.
This is about awareness, Erin.
Well, we discussed the fact that Lindsey doesn't force shots. He accumulates points when defenses relax.
You look up and he's got 8 points in 6 minutes without ever taking over, and suddenly the math has changed.
So the Johnnies need to make him work for every touch. Nothing can be easy. Nothing can be casual.
Key number 3, win the rebound that ends the possession.
And this is where Duke Brennan shows up.
Villanova will test whether you're satisfied with one stop or committed to 2.
And you can't let Brennan extend possessions with second chances. One shot has to mean just that, one shot.
Key number 4, score when you break them. Here's the flip side.
Because Villanova is disciplined defensively. But when you do create an advantage, you have to cash it in.
Missed opportunities fuel their patience, makes them comfortable, lets them reset.
And if St. John's gets downhill, they need points or free throws, no empty trips.
Key number 5, be comfortable playing a boring game.
This one might be the hardest one, Caroline, because Villanova is fine winning a game that feels uneventful.
No runs, no chaos, just steady pressure.
And if St. John's executes the keys that we just laid out, if they stay patient, finish possessions, and score when advantages appear,
then the numbers should tell the same story.
Which means it's time to put them on the board.
This is Bold or Busted Villanova edition.
All right, let's see if we can make it happen for the Villanova edition and go 5 for 5. Bold prediction number 1, St. John's records more assists than Villanova. This is a bet on flow.
Villanova's offense is built on reads and spacing, but when St. John's is at its best, the ball doesn't stick.
And if St. John's wins the assist count, it means they stayed connected and didn't force late clock hero shots.
Bold prediction number 2, St. John's scores at least 36 points in the paint.
So we know Villanova is going to guard them straight up. They're not going to overhelp.
So this becomes about seals, cuts, and finishing, not whistles.
And let's look at bold prediction number 3 then. Villanova is held under 10 second chance points. This is the Duke Brennan test.
Villanova survives on extending possessions just enough to wear you down.
And if St. John's cleans the glass, they remove Villanova's patience weapon.
Bold prediction number 4, St. John's bench outscores Villanova's bench.
All right, this is a bet on depth showing up in a quiet game.
Villanova's starters are comfortable playing long minutes, especially at the fin. Their bench production tends to be steady, not explosive.
And if St. John's gets meaningful scoring from the second unit, it means the offense stayed connected even when the first group sat.
And it means Villanova couldn't flatten the game by shortening rotations.
All right, the last one, bold prediction number 5. St. John's wins at least one scoring drought, 3+ minutes, with a run of 6-0 or more.
Villanova, Erin, is very comfortable in the droughts.
I know, but you can't just survive them. You have to puncture them.
This is about timing, not pace.
So when you look at this board as a whole, it tells you exactly what kind of game this has to be.
Assist advantage means execution. Paint points mean discipline breaking discipline. Second chance defense means possession control.
Bench scoring tells you whether St. John's depth survives the slow grind.
And winning the drought moments tells you who's owning timing, not tempo.
And if those things line up, the score should line up too.
Which means there's only one thing left to do, Erin.
Stop hedging!
This is Annie Calls the Score.
This one isn't loud. It's layered.
Villanova will make it slow. They'll make you wait. They'll try to flatten the game into a half-court grind and see who gets impatient.
We believe St. John's will answer with ball movement, paint pressure, and depth. The assists will show up. The bench absolutely will matter like it's done in the past. And one of those late drought moments tilts the game just enough.
Final score. Annie says St. John's Red Storm 79, Villanova Wildcats 73. Not dramatic, not easy, but controlled.
This Villanova trip also sets up what might be the most telling swing game of the stretch.
Because next up, St. John's comes back to the Garden on January 20th to face the Seton Hall Pirates, and that game means something very different than it did in October.
Yes, it does, because remember where Seton Hall started in October? Coming off the worst season in program history, they were picked dead last in the Big East preseason coaches poll and barely mentioned in any preseason rankings.
No buzz, no benefit of the doubt, just questions.
And now they flipped that narrative completely. They are ranked 25 as of today. Their shirts say the Hall as opposed to Seton Hall. So they have absolutely shifted who they are. They're physical, they're connected, and they're very comfortable winning games that don't look pretty.
That's not an accident, Erin. That's a team that rebuilt its identity and learned who it actually is.
Which makes this Villanova game matter even more. It's preparation for contact, for counters, and for the next layer of this league.
We'll be back breaking down what actually happened at the Finn, no spin, no shortcuts, and what it means for what's coming next.
Because in January, every game leaves a mark.
Make sure you subscribe to Full Court Femmes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube so you stay with the story.
Same standard, but new questions.
No hype, all hoops.